Okay, good morning, folks. Very first thing I want to point out, for those of you unaware, today is Canada Day. However, it is also Memorial Day here in Newfoundland. Today is the day we honor our war dead from the First World War, the Battle of Beaumont Hamel, the Battle of the Somme. Beaumont Hamel actually was an extremely brutal engagement for the Newfoundlanders. And the sacrifice of so many young men, excuse me just a moment, the sacrifice in that battle of so many young men actually led to the commissioning of, or the renaming rather, of the Newfoundland Regiment to the Royal Newfoundland Regiment. I did intend to have a history piece in my Newfoundlandia series completed for this date. However, because of, various life things, didn't work out. So that's where I am right now. Yes, while the rest of Canada enjoys a very celebratory and patriotically joyous day, those of us here in Newfoundland start the day in a much more somber mood. And it's actually very touching to have noticed that when I ran indoors to grab a coffee, the traditional memorial service was being performed at the War Memorial in St. John's, which itself is actually a very beautiful piece of, I guess, architecture, unless there's a proper term for, monument. Duh. What am I thinking? It is actually a very beautiful monument. When I first lived in St. John's in the, that would have been the early 2000, no, that would have been just prior to 2000. That was essentially a place where I would hang out, because it was close to the coffee shops, and it was just a convenient meeting place for my friend group. I'm a little bit harried this morning, setting up for a yard sale tomorrow, and also just received an invite to the Sultans of Chatelet podcast tomorrow as well. So I'm going to be juggling both of those. I do have help with the yard sale, so oops, looks like I bumped my camera a little bit. Well, just wait for Jorj to stop bouncing around. There we go. Okay, anyway. And as you can tell, I'm repeatedly moving things around in the shed, trying to get organized, trying to get a couple of projects finished, started, and hopefully sold. At some point in the very near future, I will have one project complete. It's a small, I suppose you call it a trinket box, though it has no lid. It's a combination of hobby piece, art project, and learning tool. A couple of different things I've never worked with before on any great scale are fire and actually three things. Fire, don't mind that. That's my topics for this. The marks on my hand. Yeah, I'm old school. My hand, the back of my hand is a notepad, right? But anyway, the three things I haven't worked with before are fire and power carving burrs on Dremels of rotary tools, and spray can varnish. The spray can varnish itself is actually critical because I'm restoring an antique chair for my mother, and I want to know exactly how that's going to behave before I ever spray it. I made the mistake once before of using a brush on combination stain and varnish. Absolutely atrocious in a humid environment. if I had had a well closed and controlled environment to work in, I think it probably would have worked out better. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. The client was still pleased because he wasn't expecting any sort of finish on the project I built for him. That was a set of speaker stands, which I'm proud to say were extremely sturdy, to the point that my 300 plus pound ass could lean on them heavily and they didn't even wobble. And I had taken into account acoustic issues with the building of that. Let's see. What else do I need to talk about? I am going to be, because the Sultans of Chatelet are inviting me, well, this is the second time, but because I could potentially see it being a regular thing, which I'm extremely grateful for, guys. Thank you very much for inviting me. I actually love talking to most of you guys on Discord. Trim, I haven't had a lot of interaction with on Discord. Trim seems like a nice guy, and he's a ginger, so that's a plus. And as you can hear, I'm still getting over my, get out, my illness. It's mostly just phlegm coming up off my chest at this point, though I do still have a bit of residual sinus blockage, which, you know, that's what coffee is for. Okay, so today's topic, or at least the first topic I'm going to cover now, that I've got all that other stuff out of the way. Please like, share, subscribe, comment if you feel up to it. If you feel obliged, well, don't feel obliged. You're not obliged. But if you feel that what I'm doing is worth helping, or helping me to keep doing, there is a donation link below as well. That will also be the payment portal for any work that I complete and put up videos of. In any case, let's see, where am I? Okay. I know, I'm so unfocused sometimes. So I talked about Newfoundland Memorial Day, and being an ethnic Newfoundlander, having been raised and educated and inculcated in this culture, and Newfoundland is a unique, distinct culture. It's one of the things I'm very patriotic about. Unfortunately, I do have my issues with Newfoundlanders' mindsets in some ways, and don't really fit in here. So, hence moving to the States, which is another reason I mentioned the donation link. I could use the help. Okay, so I was watching the Lotus Eaters podcast, live stream, whatever, show. I'm just going to use the word show. I'm going to go boomer old school and just call it a show. Excuse me. But I was watching that show, and in the chat, a person named Hara, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, Harra, had mentioned the Prime Directive from Star Trek in relation to the Russia thing, which, okay, yeah, that was a little bit comical, I'm sure, and really not meant to be taken seriously. However, for whatever reason, it triggered me to think, well, no, the Prime Directive was an absolutely atrocious idea. And even they themselves, I believe, later pointed out that almost every episode dealing with the Prime Directive dealt with ways to get around it. Which, yeah. And then there was, well, Janeway, who absolutely hated the Temporal Prime Directive. The Temporal Prime Directive I can kind of see being a bit more of a big deal, but, and I'll, for the sake of this, I will refer to the Cultural Prime Directive, which basically states that for the Federation, which is ironically a metaphor for the United States government, it's supposed to be non-interventionist. I suspect that's very much what Gene Roddenberry felt. Though, given the American uh, government's tendency to get involved with a lot of things, uh, especially outside their own borders, I don't really see the Federation that way. Um, but it's not unusual for a government to have a stated um, ideology and then turn around and act counter to it. Whereas, or rather, where was I going with that thought? Anyway, back to the, yeah, okay, just a second. I need to erase my notepad. Yeah, it's a little bit green though. There was a couple of different pens that didn't work when I tried them. Glad I don't have that mustache anymore. Okay, so that's what pants are for. With the Prime Directive, I think it was a bad idea for the Federation to be non-interventionist. Both because, and I'm sure they were being noble about it, but being non-interventionist doesn't prevent you from creating new enemies. And in a lot of ways, the Prime Directive seems to have created more problems than it's solved for the Federation. For example, when they first encountered the Borg, the Prime Directive, actually the Prime Directive wouldn't apply because the Prime Directive, if I remember the exact wording of it, and I don't, so I'm going to go look that up. Give me a moment while I pop. Okay, so according to Wikipedia, and in this case we'll take Wikipedia's word for it, I'm sure they got it right. The Prime Directive is a guiding principle of Starfleet that prohibits its members from interfering with the natural development of alien civilizations. The Prime Directive protects unprepared civilizations from the dangerous tendency of well-intentioned starship crews to introduce advanced technology, knowledge, and values before they are ready. That values thing is actually where the problem lies. If, for example, I were a Starfleet captain and encountered a culture that was still engaging in slavery, I would go out of my way to stop it. Fuck the Prime Directive in that case. However, as I understand it, the intention of the Prime Directive was to prevent unintended consequences. For example, especially the bit about, handing out advanced technology. In some ways, I can see the advantage of... Actually, this kind of shows the darker side of the Prime Directive, or the Federation, or Starfleet. I guess we can use those pretty much interchangeably in this case. But one of the most advanced technologies that the Federation has in Star Trek is their medical technology and their replicator technology. Why would you not want to give that to a people? Is it the feed a man and he's fed for a day, or teach a man to fish thing? Or is it more, let's keep these people from ever becoming a threat to us by any means necessary? Or becoming a rival to us? Yeah. Doesn't strike me as a good idea. In my opinion, colonization is not a bad thing. I'm a product of colonization. I'm an ethnic Newfoundlander. And many former colonies, especially in Africa, seem to long for the days of colonization, of colonial government, when they had a more stable government. There's an engine starting beside me. Just a minute. Anyway, I'm going to have to cut this a bit short, So, Prime Directive is a bad idea because you should go out of your way to help the people you meet. Simply enough, call it the Good Samaritan principle if you like. But not helping people generally makes you look like the bad guy. So, optics wise, Prime Directive is not a great idea. Anyway, guys, love you all. Take it easy. I will talk to you later, and I'll be on the Sultans of Shadowlight tomorrow.